It's been 2+ years of Sounds Profitable. On today's episode, we're discussing all the things we've accomplished, the ways you can get involved, research and findings we've come across, and what we're looking forward to. I've got Tom Webster and Bryan Barletta on the show today to help me out. Let's get into it.
For this episode, we're supported by Podsights. Check out Podsights' latest podcast advertising benchmark report to see how your campaigns compare. Go to podsights.com to learn more.
And special thanks to our partners for making Sounds Profitable possible. Check them out by going to soundsprofitable.com and clicking on their logos in the articles.
Welcome to Sounds Profitable, Ad Tech Applied. I'm Arielle Nissenblatt. On the show today, I've got Tom and Bryan, who run the ship at Sounds Profitable. Over the next few weeks, you'll hear the three of us a whole bunch. We're trying something new on this feed. We'll be going more in depth on the articles that you may or may not be reading in our newsletter every week. So whether you read the newsletter regularly and want more from us on the contents therein, or you don't read the newsletter and want to take part in the discussion anyways, this is for you. First, let me welcome Tom and Bryan. How are you both?
Outstanding. I'm so excited to be part of the 2-year anniversary, which I understand the 2-year anniversary gift, Bryan, is cotton. So cotton is what we should be giving each other.
You get a t-shirt.
Yeah, t-shirt. Yeah. I'm all about that. I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this. It's a really interesting thing to reflect on 2 years ago, this idea kicking off and being able to talk about it now with you as a co-host, Arielle, and Tom as a business partner. So I'm honestly really excited for this conversation.
Now, just for funsies, not in the script, do you remember what you did for your second birthday party?
Oh, wow. Definitely
or your kid's second birthday party.
Pandemic for us, sadly, for that with Theo. But I feel like a lot of 2 through 5-year-old birthday parties for me involve Burger King play places. I have distinct memories of them all mixing together, and somewhere between probably closer to 4 than 2, I distinctly remember receiving a Toxic Avenger action figure. And that really stands out as my association with Burger King and play places.
I think I spent my 2-year-old birthday. I remember it well. The same way that I did my most recent birthday, with cake all over my face.
There's always a cake smash involved.
Always.
Well, today, Tom and Bryan, I want to talk about an article that you wrote, Bryan. It is called Sounds Profitable 2 Years Later. To me, this was a strategic article. It let us reintroduce ourselves to the folks who have been reading us for a long time, and it let us introduce ourselves to the first time to newbies who may just be getting their first taste of Sounds Profitable. Bryan, what were you hoping that folks got out of this article?
I think I wanted to clear up a bunch of confusion. We hit the ground running with Sounds Profitable in the end of August, beginning of September in 2020. And it's been great, but it's been so fast. We called a lot of things like sponsorship to start with, because the goal was to get endorsement and be part of a marketing budget to grow things. But then we started adding consulting, which grew into, what we're now calling partnership, and to be able to work with sales teams and other teams there. So this was a moment for me to reflect, finally catch my breath and say, well, I do a good job one-on-one in explaining what Sounds Profitable is, and these people are clearly reading it, enjoying it. So maybe I should take a step back and explain all of the pieces and how they can get involved in it, or why we're doing them.
So you broke the article up into a few different sections. We've got peerless advisory services, insightful content, industry-leading research, unmissable events, and I just want to cover the future. You usually end your article saying wrapping up, but I feel like that's our call to the future. So let's go through those. And Tom, please chime in here, because I know when we did some planning earlier this year, we used these segments as how to frame the future of Sounds Profitable. So what are peerless advisory services?
So yeah, you're right. We did take the exact pillars that we did in that workshop we did together with you, Tom, Evo, and Kayla. We all got together, spent a whole day together. It was awesome, and really dug through that. And it came up with those terms that Tom and I will continue to reuse in different media. Peerless advisory service is probably our core offering. The reason why you see so many partners listed at the bottom of Sounds Profitable and a handful that aren't listed on there is because while they do want to promote this content, which is freely available, and they help make it freely available, Each of them has things that they're working on that they could use some help on. They probably don't need more intensive consulting. Some of them do, and we work with them. But a lot of them have the right people to catch these things or have a roadblock that they're hitting or need a little bit of advice. And we offer, as part of partnering with Sounds Profitable, 30 minutes a month for us to talk with them to kind of go through that. We give them access to our Slack channel over email. There's quick things that we can answer that just kind of make their job easier and make things flow a little bit better for them. And that's why I wanted to lead off there on why do you see so many partners with their logos listed at Sounds Profitable? Why do we continue to add more partners there? And it's really because Tom and I have the luxury of talking to almost everybody in the space on a frequent basis. And it allows us to highlight the issues, try and get resolutions by connecting people or bringing them to light, and then working with people on their unique problems and helping them solve it through warm introductions or planning or education or whatever's unique to them that we can't necessarily cover in a podcast or a newsletter.
I do think that Bryan and I have very complementary, non-overlapping skill sets that I don't think a lot of consultancies necessarily offer. I think there are a lot of very talented podcasting consultants on the production side, the creative side, but in terms of the actual business of podcasting, Bryan's knowledge of the ad tech space is unparalleled, and I've got 18 years of audience research in the space, and so I do think that together we bring something that really isn't out there in the podcasting space yet.
Okay, so let's go to insightful content. And listener, spoiler alert, you are experiencing that right now. What other insightful content do we present?
Well, I mean, I think we dabble in a lot of things, and this is one of the areas where we need to get a little bit cleaner. But I think that the fact that we're willing to just try stuff out, put content out there and see what works has been a real big draw. I think B2B content, which is what we are, Sounds Profitable is decidedly business to business, right? We're talking to you to help you grow your company or the employees at your company to grow their careers. So it can be really dry and not very personable. And I think that that's a real big thing that I try and solve for, and Tom tries to solve for there we have the newsletter, we have the podcast, which we're going to continue to iterate on. We had a great conversation this morning about segments around cool ads and about great research that we really want to highlight. So we're going to try and expand there. We have our product deep dives, which I don't know if some of you caught last week. We had about 300 people checking out the SquadCast live stream. We're able to do a live stream now, not just recorded content. And we're doing so much more. We do our Unplugged, which is just for our partners. It's content it's a monthly webinar built specifically for them to have kind of a candid conversation with people in closed doors, kind of emulating what we do with our live events. And so that content, right, we're building something quickly. We're trying it out. We're getting response from it. And while our newsletter is the biggest draw, like all of these things, including the download, which is unmissable. Honestly, it's our Thursday. If you only listen to one thing from Sounds Profitable, listen to the download. Seriously. It's our way of trying to see what sticks and see what we can get in front of you and how we can help you. And yeah, it could be a little bit more polished, but I think that's part of the charm right now, at least, unless feel free to give us feedback otherwise.
Tom, do you want to add anything to insightful content?
Yeah, just that Bryan and I are committed to continuing to provide as much free to the industry as we can. And one thing that I've believed in for as long as I've been in the business that I'm in is that is not to put gates on information, not to put registration gates and things like that on research that you want to get out. If it helps the space, we put it out there for free, no obligation. You don't have to sign up for anything. And that's an important part to, just our core values. And, yes, we're going to continue to provide content for partners only, like our monthly Unplugged sessions, which in the middle of writing our next one now. But the core of what we do, we want to benefit as many people as we can. And so that free aspect that's really, I think, central to what we do at Sounds Profitable.
Yeah, I think we'll be working with people in the future who may gate content, like content we create with them on their side of it, right? We have a few pitches out there and a few ideas, and that's fine for them because as podcasting becomes bigger, there are other avenues out there that need to learn about podcasting, and those partners that may help us create that they may choose to do that. But any content we create, our goal is all the entry level and even some of the advanced stuff has to be publicly accessible. The things that we do gate for partners only really are like 300 level or absolutely specific and unique to individual groups and people that is really just recorded consulting. And that's the big differentiator there. You can learn so much from our free stuff, but when you have a problem specific to you and you can't piece that together from the free content, that's the stuff that's gated. And I think that's a fine line to draw. I mean, I think that's when you're moving from even an intermediate to advanced. I think you can absolutely become a peer of Tom and I's on these topics. You could hold a strong conversation just by reading the stuff we put out. And we want more of you to do that. If you want to go further than that, we'd love for you to partner with us.
Speaking of going further with the content that we put out, we also work hard to bring folks all around the industry leading research. What does that mean and how does it present itself?
Well, I'm going to do exactly what I did to bring industry leading research to Sounds Profitable. I'm going to pass this off to Tom because Tom is the reason why we're offering research at Sounds Profitable. It was a big motivator for us to start putting out more on there. And he's the voice of research in podcasting. So Tom, why don't you explain a little bit about what we're doing on the research side?
I mean, I've been a media researcher for 25 years now. I started when I was just a boy. And, for that career, I've basically been, I've served at the pleasure of the various companies that have hired me to do research studies. And those research studies certainly executed to the best of my ability, but, they are meant to serve the agenda of a client. And what was most intriguing to me about joining Bryan was the opportunity to actually just research the podcasting space because I'm very passionate about it, but also to be our own client, to basically look at the space and say, you know what, the space would benefit the most if we researched this and did it in this way, because that would create a resource that the entire industry could use to make itself better. And so that's really the guiding principle behind our research, is that we are going to be tackling the jobs that need to be tackled, the removing barriers, removing a lack of understanding about the space, not to just solely promote it, but if there are limiting beliefs and kind of received wisdom that are holding people back from buying the space, that are holding advertisers back from investing in the space, and even holding content publishers back from investing more into their content, we want to do what we can to remove those limiting beliefs, remove those assumptions and received wisdom where it's relevant, that may be holding the industry back. So it's having that kind of free hand, I think, and we certainly, we consult a steering committee of our wonderful research partners, but ultimately Bryan and I are making the editorial decisions to pursue things that we think will make the space better.
And we're set up to do that in a way that is really fantastic. I mean, before we even commissioned our first research study, we realized that if we didn't have partners we were working with, we could still go forward with our entire plans for the 2022 and 2023 year. We knew that if we believed in something strong enough and we put the research out there, it would attract the right people to participate under, our agreement, right? They have tons of input. The steering committee is a great way to word that. They're able to participate with us on deciding what reports are valuable for them to move the industry forward and what questions they really want to see answered. But Tom has ultimate editorial authority. Honestly, that's a huge deal. And it means that at some point, if we decide we just want to do some research and we don't want to focus on selling it first, we can. If we wake up tomorrow and there's a killer thing that we know that if we had the answer towards, it would help the industry double the revenue, double growth, something like that, we are fully set up to just pursue that first and figure out the financials of it later, because we're doing well, because we work with so many of you that we can spread that cost and that risk and know that it'll help everybody we work with in one form or another.
So let's do a quick plug for some of the research studies that we've had out earlier this year. So we had a research study go out in June. What was that one about?
That was the creators. Was really proud of that. And it answered a question that I've received a lot over the past 2 or 3 years, especially from journalists. But it's been, I think, a top of mind question. And that is, who is actually creating podcasts? What are the demographics of podcast creators? And it turns out that that's a difficult research question to answer because, although in certain, maybe amongst your friends, everybody has a podcast. Once you get out into the to the general public, it's kind of hard to find podcasters, but we found them. We put out the first credible look at exactly who is creating this content. And I hope that's the start of really an annual franchise.
Then we put out a research study in August. What was that one?
That was called After These Messages. And this was, I think, our best attempt, and I think probably the best attempt that I've been involved with, to separate out the actual difference between creative executions of podcast advertising. You know, in the business, we talk about things like, you know, dynamic insertion or programmatic or host read. Other than host read, those distinctions mean nothing to the listener. And so the question that we wanted to answer is, if the host is reading a live read versus a scripted read versus an announcer reading a scripted read, and they were all executed as well as we could, is there a difference in those particular executions? Do they work better? Do the audiences like one better than the other? Are they better for the brand? And I think we answered that about as definitively as we could. It was a fantastic study. And if you haven't downloaded After These Messages, please go to soundsprofitable.com and download it, because it's one that I'm particularly proud of.
And then just a few weeks ago, we put out a follow-up to that research report, and that one was called We'll Be Right Back. So what did we cover there?
Well, that was some things that were left on the cutting room floor, I think, from After These Messages, but not because they weren't important. They just told a different story. And we knew that we had such a rich data set that we could tell multiple stories from that. So it was really another bite at the apple. And this one was a little bit more focused on some of the qualitative information that we got back. One of the questions that we asked all of the respondents who heard the various treatments of advertising, we asked them in their own words to tell us what the main message of that ad was. And, you know, it was kind of interesting to look at the differences between the host read, the announcer read, how many people mentioned the promo code, how many people mentioned the features and benefits or the particular offer and things like that. So we were able to go a little bit deeper there. And we were also able to go a little bit deeper into demographic differences, you know, how men and women perceive things differently, how the different age groups perceive things differently. So just as valuable really as After These Messages, it was too many notes for the first study. So I'm glad we were able to revisit it.
I love that though, right? Like, we finished the first report. We did it at our live event, which is the next area that we're going to talk about. And you came up to me and said, we have so much left of this. And I've got to assume that in commissioned reports, and sometimes once you tell the initial story, like it's hard to do something more with that, right? It's more billable hours. It's potentially having to field some additional stuff. There might not be a full story there. It might just be a little extra, you know, anecdote to it. But with our platform, with what we have, with the newsletter, with the ability to distribute the research, with all the partners we're working with, we just got to throw that in. Like, you had the passion, you saw the value in it. You knew that it was just a few extra slides that really drove home a different point, and you got to create an article about it and an extra report. Like, that's a lot of freedom that I think that most researchers don't get to have. And it's really exciting that we get to do that here.
I mean, normally at this time of year, if I were to put out a study like that, in my previous role, the next thing I would have to do would be, you know, election work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to really go back and revisit that or do it justice. But I mean, that's one of the things that I'm really enjoying about my partnership with you and with Sounds Profitable is that, you know, I can really focus on this and really let things, you know, extend the life of some of these things that we're putting out, like our research.
Yeah.
Let's go over to unmissable events. What events have we put on? What events do we hope to put on? And what makes them unmissable?
So I think the unmissable part is the fact that we're pulling all the leaders in podcasting together. I mean, look through the people that are partnering with Sounds Profitable. These are the people changing the industry every single day for the better, I think. There are people really driving the agenda of an open ecosystem, exploring the closed aspects of it, pushing the CPMs higher to benefit everybody, pushing performance, stronger, getting more brands in the space. These are all the people that are going to drive the business forward and are directly responsible for those estimated numbers of the industry exceeding 2 billion in the US, right? They're the people that are going to bring us to 4 billion and 10 billion and further from there. So that's the attendee list. Anybody who is a partner of Sounds Profitable gets free access to these events. We do between 1 and 3 tickets per event. And I say per event, but truthfully today, at the time of this recording, we only did 1 so far. And it was a huge success. We had about 250 to 300 people from the over 100 companies working with us at that time attend the first day at Podcast Movement for a full day event. Right. We had 4 different panels. We had an hour of networking in between. We had it catered. We had bags and lanyards and all these fun things. And we had Tom's research at the end of it. I think it was amazing. And we learned so much from it. And we do intend to continue to partner with podcasting events like Podcast Movement. But I think a big thing that we're going to really dig into is it was very powerful to be a major business event at a major podcast event. But I think it's going to be really powerful to be a major podcast business event at a major advertising or content or so many other different things events, right? Like South by Southwest, Cannes, Adweek. Those are all on our radar for next year. And figuring out with partners local to those areas or partners who want to work with us to get the space for a couple hundred people to get together, all partners of Sounds Profitable, probably smaller in scope. I think we're going to do the research in 1 panel or 1 keynote speaker. Plenty of time for people to connect with each other because these are all the people that want to work with each other anyways. And sometimes getting FaceTime is very difficult. And then be a major reason why all of these people are there in force at events that should have a bigger podcasting presence. So that's a lot of our priority going forward. We're working right now. And look, if you got a lead on a place, I'm not going to say no to it. For the end of November, beginning of December, to do LA on a Tuesday and New York on a Thursday, probably in the 150 to 200 person range. All of our partners are invited. We're going to take a little bit of a different approach. We're going to actually try and reach out to all the brands in those areas too, the ones that want to get into podcasting, not the holding companies, not the agencies. A lot of those work with us directly and they'll be there anyways, but the brands, people that really need to learn more about things, especially what our research is in Q4, which is brand safety and suitability, and give them the opportunity to talk to experts in the podcast space with no strings attached and hear killer research, a killer panel, and meet and greet with these people, hopefully in their home turf. I think LA and New York should capture a lot of those brands. And for a lot of our partners, I think at least one of those will be a quick trip for them to come by and participate in it. But yeah, we got our sights set on being somewhere every single quarter. Finding the places and the partners to work with is new for us because I remember 2 years ago, this was Bryan writes a Medium post and now we run events apparently. So
something that I, just to echo what Bryan said, something that I miss about the space is the space has definitely gone from being collegial to being competitive. And, we hear estimates and forecasts about the podcast industry is going to reach 4 billion by this year or that year. No, it's not. It's not if we're not generally rowing in the same direction. And it's rooms like that. It's rooms like the space that we were all able to put together at Podcast Movement and the spaces we're going to put together in the future where we can bring some of that collegiality back. Because as long as the major companies in podcasting are generally rowing in the same direction, then I think we can hit those forecasts and those targets. I'm not a forecaster. I don't love doing that, but I do know that if we're all working at cross purposes and aren't having those conversations, that the space is going to bifurcate and it's never going to reach those targets.
Right.
I think the absence has made and the lack of events, the COVID has done a number on our industry. We're a very community focused industry. And I truthfully don't think we need to be as competitive as we are right now. I do not think that we have enough demand for people to stop trying to bring more people into the space and starting to fight over who's already here. I think that's lazy. And I want to be a reason. I want to be a driving force. And so does Tom, for why there are more people in the space, why we can focus on still bringing people in before we shut the doors, don the knives and have a red wedding there. But we're a little far off from that. It'll happen at some point. It'll be competitive, but I think we're years away from it. I think the fact that, when we hit 1 billion, social media influencer marketing was already over 10 billion. Like, we're in the early stages, and I know podcasting's like 20 years deep now, but like we're still in our infancy in the ad tech space and advertising space.
You started making some predictions or non-predictions about the future, so that lets me transition a bit to the future. And I have some questions for you both about the future of Sounds Profitable. First off, how can folks who are just getting into the audio industry, folks who see this as their future, how can they use our resources to up their game?
I think today we need to do a better job of that. I think we have a ton of articles, probably over 100 articles at this point. Some of them are named well. You know, podcast streaming is a myth. Really easy one to find in our articles or to search for. But then like the one about surveys is like the intangibles of podcast advertising. It doesn't associate well. So we need to now look at the content we've created and realize we can create education and a frequently asked questions for it. I would recommend people go through and look at the titles of old articles, see if they work for them. Search keywords. Our search is good. It could be better in the platform, but expect to see more bite-sized content. Expect to see us revisit older articles with the intent of asking questions and then rewriting the content instead of telling stories, which some of them are. But I think there's a lot of content there. I'm not afraid to say that it's a fire hose today and it needs to be different. But I think if you read everything going forward or listen going forward, you'll be better for it and you won't miss out on much. I think we do a good job at recapping and catching people up in every single thing we do. But there's a lot of untapped potential in the older content we have.
And how do you want our current partners or folks who are in that position, in that level in their careers, how do you want them interacting with Sounds Profitable?
Well, for the partners, I mean, if you see your company's logo on there and you're not in our Slack channel, like fix that. Shoot me an email, reply to any of the newsletters, and I'll add you in there. Follow our Twitter account, tweet stuff at us. We'll reshare that. Any way we can help you, let us know. The Slack channel and all those things allow us to interact with you. We shoot out messages for the monthly webinars, which are great. There's Q&A at the end and it's open chat for all the partners to interact with. It's a great place for people to communicate and really collaborate, grow themselves as for their knowledge, for their business, but also grow themselves in the industry to make connections at other companies too. I think that's really important. So yeah, definitely reach out. If your company is a partner of Sounds Profitable and you're not in the monthly webinars or not on the Slack, let's fix that immediately.
Yeah, and the monthly webinars that we do, the unplug sessions are really key, I think, because that's we bill that as a frank exchange of views, as an open forum for all of our partners to get together. I think our next one is coming up for partners in a little over a week. And I think we have about 150 people signed up for it already. I mean, these are our events. And, we take them very seriously and they
unmissable.
I think they're unmissable. Yeah. I think we said that. So it's the onus is on us to actually do that.
Awesome. And I won't ask you to make any predictions, but I will ask you to share your hopes and dreams. So 2 years from now, when Sounds Profitable is 4, what is one thing that you would like to see chugging along, or what is one thing that you would like to see in play?
I think we're probably owned by Elon Musk.
God.
In 2 years. Bryan and I are big fans.
No.
Look, honestly, I think there's an incredible need for what Bryan and I are doing. I think the best thing that we could do, and it's not going to happen in 2 years, but I think is at some point to put ourselves out of business, to have grown the space
100%.
So much that we have lifted people up, that we have given people careers in this space. And that's what I want. I want people to have careers in this space. I want for somebody to tell their parents that when they grow up, they want to be a podcaster, and for that not to be a joke. Right. That's something I take very seriously. And anything that Bryan and I can do to legitimize the space, to grow the space, and to make it a port of first call for advertising dollars, for investment dollars, and not just an experimental spend. I think we're getting out of those years, but anything that we can do to make that future happen, you can bet that we're going to do it.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I mean, I think that when I first started, it was very clear that I want to dread Pirates Roberts this. Like a world where someone else is Bryan Barletta and sounds profitable and writing and can talk about these things to the depth I can excites me. I feel like I'm a great teacher. Someone's there following along and asking questions, but I'm not yet good enough to sit down and like teach somebody. And I'm going to be learning those skills and working on it. But I would love in 2 years from now, there's a handful of people out there that got their start with us, interning with us or working directly for us and are doing bigger and better things. I mean, the entire group at the download, right? All of our people on the download, you yourself, Arielle, like all of you are people, everybody we work with is someone we want to see outgrow us and go lead the industry further and better things. Tom and I are not shy about the fact that we're building a business that's trying to grow everybody in here, and that might make us obsolete. That'll be a victory. I mean, we both have plenty of time left in our career, and I don't think we will ever hurt for work. I think we do really good stuff. I think that whether we take a job somewhere else or whatever, we do consulting and just a different facility, like if everybody knows what's going on in the industry to the point where sounds profitable is not needed, that's a success. And I'd like to just be on the path towards that. I found a lot of excitement being able to experiment on new technology and pushing things forward and connecting people in the consulting side of it, building smaller pieces of content or exploring the deep dives in different aspects here. So for me in 2 years, I would really, really like to have somebody on who can speak a little bit more to the types of things I'm writing about. I think I'd be writing less. I think I'd be on the podcast less because me and Tom would have worked really hard to pull somebody up, grow them, maybe multiple people, and get to spread this even further. So that's my hope in 2 years.
Tom mentioned something about getting parents to take podcasting seriously. So I propose a new service, which is that Tom and Bryan, you record very short snippets that I can send to my dad so he knows that this is legit.
Well, then you got to do the same for me to send to my mom because she still doesn't believe it's legit.
I think a lot. I really think this would do well. I think it would resonate with a lot of people in podcasting right now.
Yeah, it's tough because when you say podcasting, right, people, right, first off, they tell you they listen to Joe Rogan and you walk away. But second, like they think about just the microphone side of it. And while this is fun, I love talking on the mic. This isn't what Sounds Profitable is. Like Sounds Profitable is the information I'm sharing and what you're taking from that and how you're applying it to the work. It's very clearly our newsletter, which has almost 7,500 people subscribed to it with 55% of them reading every single thing that we put out, right? Every single thing and sharing it like crazy and growing their careers. That's podcasting to me. My podcasting isn't recording a D&D podcast or a true crime podcast or a really good news. And that's, I'm here to help those people handle the back end of it. And I think, I think that the business of podcasting, being able to say I work in podcasting and not the assumption that it's a mic, you say I work in film. It's just like, oh, are you an actor? We don't say that anymore, right? It's like, oh, what do you do? Are you, a production assistant? Like all of these different roles that you could do. Podcasting is an industry. So
I get so embarrassed when I say, oh, I work in podcasting and people say, oh, what's your podcast about? And I'm like, well, I do have a podcast about podcast recommendations, but that's not really what I'm saying here.
So Gavin was at a wedding this weekend. So Gavin Gaddis joined the team as an assistant for Tom and I, and has been phenomenal. Also writes the download. Gavin was at a wedding and they asked what Gavin did, and Gavin said, I work in podcasting. And they asked that question. Gavin said, I work in podcast ad tech, and it shut the conversation down. The people had no idea how to continue talking with them.
Good
about
and bad.
So, yeah, I guess that's. I mean, legit.
You got to remember that one.
Yeah, there you go. Nobody wants to talk about ad tech at a wedding.
I don't understand why not. But anyway. Thank you, Tom and Bryan, for joining me on this episode of Sounds Profitable, Ad Tech Applied, to discuss the article called Sounds Profitable 2 Years Later. This episode of Sounds Profitable was written by me, Arielle Nissenblatt. It's edited by Reese Carman and Ron Tendick. It's built using Spooler, and it's hosted on Omni Studios. Hey listeners, what do you think of the show? We would love to hear from you. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments. We're on Twitter at SoundsProfNews, at Bryan Barletta, at Webby2001, or at Ari This and That. And if you want to send us an email, that's podcast@soundsprofitable.com.
This show is recorded with SquadCast, the best place to record studio-quality video and audio for content creators. We use SquadCast for every interview and deep dive that we do, so I encourage you to check it out. Go to squadcast.fm for a free 7-day trial, and please let me know what you think and send us your squad shots.
And if you want more from Sounds Profitable, make sure you subscribe to both of our podcast feeds and to our newsletter. You can get more information about all of that at soundsprofitable.com.
And thanks to you for listening to this episode of Sounds Profitable at Tech Applied with me, Bryan Barletta.
And me, Arielle Nissenblatt.
And me, Tom Webster. We'll see you next time.